was named Harriet Weaver after my great-aunt Harriet Weaver. But the more I think about her now and the more I know about her, the more absolutely amazed I am at what she achieved. Because I shared that name with her, I felt a connection with her. I think as a child, your name is very important. So I always used to think it was rather special, this connection. I used to like writing letters to great Aunt Harriet and getting letters back from her. Harriet Weaver was born into a large family, brought up in Frodsham, Cheshire, born in 1876. Her father was a doctor. They were a very religious evangelical Church of England family. She was aware that she had to keep to herself what she was reading because she wanted to read widely, and she was also reading people like John Stuart Mill on liberty, where he talks about the need for freedom and that different ideas shouldn't be stifled. Even if those ideas were wrong, it was still a bad thing to stifle ideas. So that led to her keeping different areas of her life separate. So to the family, she was always Harriet or Aunt Hat. And then there was the world of literature and publishing, James Joyce. And she always wrote to him as Mr. Joyce. He always wrote to her as Miss Weaver. So in that world, she was Miss Weaver, dear Miss Weaver. Throughout their friendship, dear Miss Weaver. The money that she inherited, she didn't believe in living off unearned income, so she felt very bad about having the money, so she was very happy to find other worthy causes, such as James Joyce. Well, to start with, The Free Woman and the Egoist magazine. And it's interesting because Joyce also wanted to get rid of money, but he did it in a very different way. He liked to spend lavishly and, would lavishly tip waiters and taxis and buy his wife and daughter fur coats to cheer them up. Similar but different relation to money. It's quite an enigma that she and Joyce were so very different, but there was this, it's sort of the incongruity of Joyce and Miss Weaver. What he was writing, how he lived, everything, and how she was, they were so different, but somehow they had this great respect for each other. When they were looking for a publisher for Ulysses, it was recommended to her that she should go and visit Virginia and Leonard Woolf. She brought in this very large brown paper parcel. In comes this very quiet, blue-eyed English spinsterly lady with this sort of dynamic, explosive material that she was asking them to publish. And Virginia Woolf rather sort of disdainfully described her as this spinsterly lady all buttoned up with her woolen gloves. And they turned down this suggestion. So she was quite hurt and angered by that. Aunt Hat always used to say rather bitterly, "And what's wrong with woolen gloves?" She became very concerned with his living conditions and extremely concerned about his health. She felt really keenly his suffering. She was very, very compassionate. And it also extended to her affection for his family. Surprisingly, she and Nora Joyce got on very well, I think, because they both had this great love of James Joyce, but I think they just, although they were very different, they really liked each other and they got on well. I went to Dublin a few years ago, and I first went to the Martello Tower, where the first thing you see when you come into the Martello Tower is the beautiful portrait of Aunt Hat in pride of place. That was so moving and so unexpected. We went to the National Library of Ireland in Dublin, and there the keeper of special manuscripts showed us the copy that Aunt Hat had given to the library, which was her #1 copy of the first edition of Ulysses. But she dedicated herself to the things that she believed in. I think she was absolutely remarkable. Maybe it was rather a lonely life, because in a way she wasn't able to share these different parts of her life. I think she thought that if he had a steady, secure income, he'd be able to have a nice, sedate home and a nice, orderly way of life. She didn't realise that he thrived on writing in chaos, with sitting in an armchair with a suitcase across, doing his writing there with the family all around him, moving from one home, flat, hotel to another. Oh, I know, there was another little story that Wyndham Lewis, by chance, let fall the information what a terrific drinker Joyce was, and how he would be out drinking and celebrating all evening. And Aunt Hat was completely shocked. Although she was very liberal in all her so many other views, she, as a social worker, she'd worked in the East End of London, and she'd seen the effects on families, poor families in the East End, where the father would be drinking, and the dire effects on the family. He very cleverly wrote this wonderful long letter to Harriet, to dear Miss Weaver, saying that since he's become, well known, people are spreading all these terrible stories about him, all the evils that he does, that he commits. And so he sort of blows it up sky high, what a terrible, evil man he is, all these terrible vices that he has. And so he kind of wins her round by kind of making a story out of the whole thing. So she had to accept that's how he was. But that's the wonderful thing, I suppose, perhaps the attraction of opposites, or she accepted, this is how he is, she accepted, you've got to take the whole package. So it's fascinating story. The incongruity of the people and what she was like what he wrote. Life is extraordinary.
Weaver of the wind.